Welcome to the Ultimate 180, the podcast for hardworking people like you who are ready to break free from exhaustion and create a life that actually feels good. Let's ditch the fear, relieve the stress, and start changing your life one simple degree at a time. Hey, it's Christina Walker, and welcome back to the Ultimate 180, where we flip what you think you know upside down so you can finally create a life you actually want to live. In today's episode, we are talking about a trap so many people fall into when they're trying to change their lives. They switch their jobs, they start a new routine, they even jump into self-help books or therapy, but they do it all with the exact same mindset that got them stuck in the first place. So if you're feeling like you are running in circles, you're making all the right moves, but you're still ending up exhausted, overwhelmed, and nowhere near as close to where you want to be, then this episode is for you. Before we dive in though, I would just want to ask you a quick favor. If this episode sparks anything inside you, whether it's hope, clarity, or even just a nudge to think differently, tap that follow button. It helps you stay plugged in, and it also helps someone else who needs to find this message too. And if something really hits home, do not keep it to yourself. Screenshot this episode, share it on social, and honestly, tag me with your biggest takeaway. I absolutely love seeing what lands, and it inspires me to do more. If you want to go deeper, grab my free Stop Working So Hard workbook and join my VIP community. We are doing a life-changing work together because you don't have to do this alone. All the links are in the show notes. So let's get started as we navigate change together, 1 degree at a time. Let's do this. It's not the job. It's not the relationship. It's not even the hustle. It's the way you're approaching change itself. If you're trying to change your life with the same habits, thought patterns, and strategies that got you stuck, well, you're just going to end up right back where you started. Does that make sense? So today we're going to break down how to stop repeating old cycles and finally make the kind of change that sticks. And that's what you really want. So a lot of times we approach change and we say, okay, I want to do something new. I mean, New Year's resolutions, hello, right? And we go into it. We're going to do it differently this time because this time we're going to stick to it. And the reason we don't stick to it is because we have a default approach that we work from in life. We have a lot of years of experience doing this, and we do it one way, and we don't even notice. And that's why it's so difficult sometimes to feel like you can really create change that sticks. So if you're exhausted from overworking and you decided, I am going to switch jobs, but you carry that same overworking tendency, that whatever is inside of you, if you keep that with you, guess what's going to happen? The same thing at the new job, right? You're going to end up just as exhausted no matter what job you go to. Whether you take a step back, a step forward, a step aside, you're going to end up in that same place. I don't care if you go halfway around the world to get a new job. You're going to end up in the same place. And that's because you're running by default on the way you create change. And so the first thing to do is you have to recognize how you typically respond to stress, problems, and goals. I'll say that again. You have to understand and start recognizing how you as an individual respond to stress, problems, and goals. So, like, are you a fixer? Are you a hustler? Are you a people pleaser? That's what you need to do, is to start to identify, who am I? And this doesn't mean who am I as in, why am I here? This means who am I as a person and how, as I respond to the world, how have I been default responding to the world? Because when you start to identify your default mode, that is the first step in you being able to break this cycle. Because that's what we want to do. We want to break the cycle so that we don't have to keep doing it again. So if you can do it now, wherever you're at right now, then you can change the job. Because yes, maybe it's not a great job. Maybe you don't love your boss, whatever. There could be all sorts of things wrong. But before you change yourself, you're going to end up with the same kind of boss, in the same kind of situation, with the same kind of team. In fact, I know this is sometimes people, they understand it, but they don't understand it. And I've got a client who's an executive and he just couldn't wait to move on. And so he asked his company, hey, I'm ready for a change. I really think I need to be in a different, I need to see a different part of the company and just to do things differently. He really didn't enjoy his boss and what he was doing, but he didn't want to leave the company necessarily. He just thought, well, you know what, if I just was in this different part of the company, things would be less stressful with a different boss. I'm going to make this change. And guess what? He ended up in the same exact spot with the same kind of whiny team. And what we realized when we dove into this is that, he did recognize in the end that it was him, right? But he didn't realize what it was. And for him, he was enabling his team to not step up. And so he ended up filling in because he felt it was easier just to fill in than to make them step up, because he wanted to be liked. It's great to be liked. And he's a great leader. But what he didn't realize is that he took that enabling with him and started creating the same environment in a completely different team, in a completely different group. So it happens to the best of us. But once we identify it, that's when we can start working on it, is to identify our default processes that we work from. So we need to learn how to change our approach, not just the circumstance, right? Not just the job, not just the place, not just where we live, not just the relationship, not just the who. We need to learn to change our approach. Because if we just rely on changing the job, changing the routine, changing the partner, we are going to mentally burn out. That's how we burn out, because we feel like we're on this hamster wheel, like, oh my God, here I am again. And it feels like it's the other side, right? It feels like it's the other person, it's the other job, it's the other circumstance. But what we don't understand is that we are somehow drawing that into us because of how we approach things in life. It's our approach that's actually doing this. And I know that is a hard message to accept. But when you can accept it, we can learn from it and we can change it. And that's what this is all about, is changing it. So once you identify just even something like this gentleman, I was enabling my team and I was filling in instead of forcing them to step up in a kind way, because you can do that. So start to ask yourself, in the situations, how can I do this differently? Because, so let's say your default mode is to go all in. That was me. Sometimes it still is me. I'm working on it. But it's a go all in, or to, some people are push until you drop. I ask you to try the opposite. It's like opposite George from Seinfeld, right? I don't know if you remember that episode at all. If you haven't, watch it. It's hilarious because George was just always doing things. Everything was falling apart. I think I've actually even talked about this before, right? But you have to be opposite George for a minute and just try, what does the opposite feel like? Even if you don't actually do it, what would it feel like if I said this or I required that instead of what I normally do? If I'm a people pleaser, instead of just saying yes, what would it feel like if I said no, thank you? and went happily on with my day instead of taking on. I remember even when our kids were little and a friend of mine's kid, she ran up to me and she was like, here, hold this. And your instinct is to hold that because you're like, your own kid hands you a billion things and you're like, what? Okay, yeah. But, and you end up with like a bunch of crap. And now you're standing on the sidelines with everybody's crap, right? And I remember the lady next to me who was taking care of this child an awful lot. And she, before I had an opportunity to say anything, she said, no, that's yours. You figure it out. And I thought that was hilarious because it's not something I would ever say. Although thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I can just say, no, go find, you can find a spot for it. Right. It's just, I would have a different approach to that. But it made me stop and realize how many times we automatically will just, okay, I'll do this. Right. Especially if you're a people pleaser and you don't stop and think, wait, now I'm enabling that kid, right? By just, oh, okay, now I'm like the dumping ground. So it's kind of funny how many in different situations that we take this on and we just live by default. I actually have, this is so interesting. This is huge, by the way. This is one of the biggest points I want to make today is sometimes what we do is we cross over our default into different categories of life. So I've got a client who is an overachiever, an overworker, exhausted, and she got a scare, a real health scare. And she's like, that's it. I know this about myself. I've known it for years. And every job I go to, I do the same thing. I'm all in. I overexert myself. I take on too much. I've done this for years. This time I've got to do something different. So I'm going to take some time to heal. And I've watched her approach healing in the same exact way she has been approaching her jobs. She's all in. She's going to do all the things. And I'm watching thinking, oh my God, you're running on default. And it hit me. I'm like, listening to her, how she's going to heal, but that's not how we heal, right? That's not how we change ourselves because that is so easy to do. We can take that same default and not even realize that we're bringing it into all of the places in our life. And that's when the magic happens, is when we can step back and say, oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to do it this time. What would I normally do? Let's give ourselves some other options that aren't that. So we need to take smaller steps, slower steps, right? Instead of quickly saying yes, quickly doing that, we need to take a rest, a moment, a pause, and we need to take measurement in our progress of these tiny little increments of change that we're starting to make that are different than we've done before and how they're affecting our lives. Because when you can really observe and be the observer of your own life and say, oh my gosh, okay, so this time I said no to all of these things, I feel so much lighter. I don't feel so overcommitted. I don't feel so overwhelmed. I feel energized to go do some more things that I want to do instead of at the end of the day feeling like all I want to do is sit on the couch and drink a glass of wine. Because now we're realizing and we're as a spectator looking at our lives going, wow, this is working. And it allows us to do more of that. Now, maybe sometimes you blurt out something that you didn't really, you're like, well, that didn't feel good. Okay, then don't do that again. But if you're observing, you can recognize that you don't want to just go back to your default, though. Don't go back to your default response. Just maybe don't do that one, right? But that's what being an observer does, is that you can take these small little incremental steps towards a different way of responding to life. So if you really want to get unstuck and you really want to create change, I'm telling you, the power of that pause is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. Because most people feel stuck because they are going too fast to see their own patterns. And the only way we can see our patterns is to pause. And I know I've done an entire episode before on the power of the pause. And it is vital to change. If you really want to change your life, you have to learn how to take a breath, take a pause, take a moment, become the observer. So before you leap into that next relationship, that next job, that next self-improvement book or project, take a strategic pause. Take a pause and really think about, okay, what is it that I really want to do? And what would my default response have been in life to this situation? And then you can even think about, well, what lives do you see around you that you're like, wow, I admire how they can do X, Y, and Z. Well, what are they doing? What would they do in that instance? Sometimes that helps us too. Is someone that we know, we can say, oh, what would they do? Oh, that might work. That might feel good. Does that feel good for me? And that's what the power of the pause really can do. You can strategically think about the things that you're going to change and start living outside of your default. And reflecting on what didn't work is just as important as what does work. If you do that default one more time, because you will, we're all going to slip back into a default now and then. But if we can reflect on that and take that pause and say, oh God, I saw myself. Fabulous. You just caught yourself defaulting. That is huge. So celebrate that. Don't be angry at yourself. Don't beat yourself up about it. Celebrate the fact that you caught it. And you did it. Yep, you defaulted, but now you can change it because you caught it. And remember, change itself is not about doing more. It's about doing things differently. And I want you to really take a moment, take a pause to get that concept, doing things differently. So here's the real question. Are you actually changing, or are you just repeating the same old pattern in a different setting? Because if you want real transformation, it's not about doing more. It's about doing differently. And the truth is, change doesn't start with a new job, a new city, or even a new self-help book. It starts with you, how you approach the change itself. So the next time you feel the urge to fix, to hustle, to jump headfirst into a new solution, pause and ask yourself, am I about to do the same thing I've always done? Because if you are, the result will be the same too. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode hit home, tap that follow button and tag me with your biggest takeaway. And if you want to dive deeper, then let's discover what's ultimately possible for you. Grab my free workbook and join the VIP group. The link's below or at ultimate180.com. You'll find all my episodes there on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your shows.